Looks like we have some people coming in. Hello, David, Grace, Latanya, Shelby, Andrea, Sebastian. Thank you for joining us. People are still flowing in. Hello, Julie and Grace, Alexa, Margaret. Welcome. Shelby, Vanessa, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for logging in.
Welcome everyone to the Multicultural Open House panel, Who is Taking Care of My Student? Please note that you can use the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen, whether it's to communicate technical issues or to ask questions after our panelists introduce themselves. A few of us in the back will help to answer some of your questions, but if your question isn't answered in text or during the panel, you can always follow up by going to the MO website. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Alfie Daniels, Associate Director of Yale Undergraduate Admissions. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Maura, for that introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us. I know some folks are still rolling in. We are in the Who's Taking Care of My Student panel, and I am joined this evening here in Connecticut. I know perhaps it might be morning or afternoon where you are, by some of my esteemed colleagues around the university who are going to talk about the wonderful resources that we have here at Yale to support students throughout their 4 years of their undergraduate education. So without further ado, I'm going to ask each of the panelists if they could give us their name, their university affiliation, and what their role is in supporting undergraduates here at Yale. So I'm going to start, I guess, with Sharon. Would you like to go first?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Kugler. Excuse me. I'm the university chaplain, and I am in my 14th year here at Yale, and I'm very, very happy to be with you wherever you might be. In my role as university chaplain, I oversee all the religious and spiritual programming and different religious professionals that work the campus. We've got chaplains representing nearly every religious and spiritual tradition, in numerous prayer spaces and chapels. We also serve as sort of a port in the storm for our students who are going through different periods of change and challenge in their lives, and also times of joy. You don't have to be religious to come and visit with a chaplain. This semester, we're doing everything virtually, and it seems to be going pretty well. And we're just happy to have this chance to talk to you tonight, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Sorry, I was muted there. Sorry, Risa Nelson, would you like to go next?
Sure. So yes, I'm Risa Nelson, and I serve as the director of the Afro-American Cultural Center at Yale. I also serve as assistant dean of Yale College. And I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of the house, which is what we call the Afro-American Cultural Center. It was established in 1969, and the house is the first Black cultural center in the Ivy League. It's one of the first in the nation, and it's also the first cultural center at Yale. We serve as a home away from home for Yale's Black students and to all who wish to learn about and celebrate, keyword celebrate, the cultures, histories, and traditions of the African diaspora. We have several different programming areas that I will very, very briefly go over. One is our new student outreach and programming area. And so in this one, we reach out to our pre-college and prospective students, you all, by offering different student panels led by our student assistant teams. We have different tours of the house. We have our peer liaison program for our new students. And so this is a program that provides an upper level mentor for our first years and new students to make sure that they are smoothly transitioning into Yale and into New Haven. We also have our first year retreat in our affinity programming. So for example, we have, especially in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the semester, we hold different events that focus on the Black international experience, the Black student athlete experience. We have one for multiracial and transracial adoptees. We have one for LGBTQIA+ students as well. In our student success programming area, we have academic and professional development, as well as, importantly, our wellness initiatives. We have in our student leadership development area, 35 student organizations, both undergraduate and graduate and professional students, student organizations that focus on academic learning and professional development, cultural celebrations, social, political actions. And we also offer student funding in this area for the organizations as well as to our individual students to support any professional development opportunities that they want to explore. The house has, since its inception, been connected to our local community. And so we also have a student team who works on civic engagement initiatives to make sure that we are strengthening our connection to our local New Haven students. I'm from New Haven as well. And so I am very, very proud to be a home for our students, K through 12 especially, who come through the house for mentoring and tutoring. We have an area called Intercultural and Social Justice Programming. That's Black History, and this is throughout the year, not just February, but Black History programming throughout the year. We have our events, traditions. This ranges from our new student welcome ceremony to family and friends weekend, actually coming up this weekend. We have winter formal, we have our Black graduation, celebration, reunions. I also serve as an advisor through my role as a Pearson College Fellow. And that's the structure of the AFAM house, but I want to just mention that there are 4 cultural centers at Yale, and we do very similar work in supporting our students. We also have different academic programs, the STARS program, which focuses on research and professional development opportunities, mentoring for underrepresented students in STEM. We have our Intercultural Affairs Council, which supports student organizations who are coordinating events that support intercultural engagement. And I also chair the university's MLK commemoration events. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Dean Nelson. And if I could ask Karen to go next and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks, Alfie. My name is Karen Gosling, and I'm the Associate Director of Undergraduate Writing and Tutoring at the Yale Purvue Center for Teaching and Learning. As part of my position there, I am the Director of our Academic Strategies program, and I also co-supervise the First Generation Low Income Community Initiative, which is a partnership with the Yale College Dean's Office. Our job, sort of broadly speaking at the Purvue Center, is to try to help your students be happy and satisfied with their Yale education and find success and fulfillment in their academic work. Yale is challenging. That's why students are interested in coming here. And for many, many students across the board, there's a big difference between high school work and college work. And what our job is to help students gain the skills and tools they need to, first of all, bridge from high school into college and get information about how college is a little bit different than high school. What's being asked of them is a little bit more challenging, and we sort of pass on information to them about, for example, how you approach talking to faculty. What's the difference between a seminar and a lecture, and how do you thrive in both of those environments? You know, what's the difference between chemistry homework and a chemistry P set, which is what you encounter, or problem set, which is what you encounter in college? What's the difference between the two? How can you be successful in the work that you're doing? So through the Academic Strategies program in particular, we offer workshops, one-on-one consultations with peer mentors, and we also offer some peer mentorship groups. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a few moments. I think one of the big differences about Yale and its resources is that it's a highly resourced environment. And so there's a strong expectation that students will take advantage of those resources. So for example, there's a lot of tutoring available, and faculty have the expectation that all students take advantage of that tutoring outside of the classroom environment. It's such an expectation that now we often have students, our tutors embedded in the courses, either in the form of course-based peer tutors or in the form of undergraduate learning assistants, because it's so widespread for students to take advantage of those extra resources. In addition to what we do academically, we know that our students don't separate out the different parts of their academic lives. There's no one silo for academics and one silo for extracurriculars and one silo for professional, pre-professional skills. So what we do is try to help students navigate those three areas as best as possible. And we also do some work partnering with, for example, the Center for International and Professional Experience, because knowing how to talk to your faculty member carries the same skills that talking to somebody in the professional world also does, and learning how to network. So we try to help connect students to a wide variety of the resources here at Yale. With my other hat as one of the co-supervisors of the First Generation Low Income Community Initiative, we are trying to provide support and community for students who may be first in their families to go to college, or who are coming from less resourced academic environments. And again, we have a very robust peer mentorship program. We had over 130 students, first-year students, sign up for our peer mentorship program, where they work with a academic strategies peer mentor who also identifies as FGLI. And we take them through the resources and the questions that first-generation students often have during their first few weeks at Yale, and provide them support and community and connect them with each other. This was so successful that we actually, last year, that we were actually offering some sophomore peer mentorship groups, which we also had over 130 students apply for. So there's a very strong and robust community in the First Gen Low Income Community Initiative. Also part of that initiative is providing some financial support for students, and also providing networking support. So I'm really happy to meet all of you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you for that introduction, Karen. And Surjit, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Surjit Chantok. I am Dean of Trumbull College, so I'm one of the 14 residential college deans. I'm also a faculty member in the Department of Molecular, Cellular, and Developmental Biology. I've been at Yale for 13 years, came right after doing my PhD in cell biology, and I never left. So this is my 5th year serving as Trumbull's dean. So like I said, I'm one of 14 residential college deans. I live in the college with my family, my husband and my 18-month-old son, and also work here full-time. So my office is here and my home is over there, and all of the deans live in the college. And I like to think of myself as, you know, technically I am the primary academic and personal advisor for all of the students in Trumbull College. But I think the way I see myself supporting undergraduates is that students who come here, they're going to have a lot of different advisors. So, everywhere from FROCOs and other peer liaisons, peer advisors, big SIBs, to college advisors who are members of the staff and faculty, to advisors in their major, to faculty members who they get to know really well. But what I say is that I'm here the whole time, and I'm here from the very beginning until they get their diploma at the end and beyond, and really see myself as the person who gets to have the pleasure of watching each student grow and find their place here. And so I think that one of the things I do in the first term, and I'm in the midst of that right now, is I make every first year student meet with me one-on-one. It's really fun. I kind of get to know them a little bit, and then my goal is to let them know why they should come and see me whenever they need to. And I meet with students. There are some students I meet with every week, and there's some students who I see whenever they need to see me. They have a question or they're making a big decision. And that has been, I think, setting the stage in the first term has been really helpful for me to kind of know that I've seen every student within their first term, and then they know to come and see me. And I think that one of the other things I will tell students is that, yes, I'm a resource as an academic advisor, no matter what their major. I'm also their go-to person if they just don't know where to go. There's all these resources here at Yale. Where do you start? I often will tell them to come to me. But I also say that I'm one of the non-student adults who is a confidant who lives right in their college and is available to talk to them, about whatever they might be going through. And I don't have any agenda. I always say that. I'm not going to try to convince them to be any particular major. I'm really just here to listen and to help them find their place here and to find their path. And that takes a number of years, and I'm here the whole time. So that is the role, I think, of a residential college dean. There's 14 of us. We work really well together to support all of the undergraduates at Yale. Thanks.
Thank you for that introduction. And then our last panelist, Dr. Chen, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and explain your role at the university?
Yeah, I am Christine Chen. I'm the Chief of Student Health. I started just in time for the pandemic in January of this year. I'm Yale College 93, long time ago. So it's really nice to be back and to see how much Yale has grown and changed, and to actually be a part of it is really great. I have a little slideshow for you. I'll talk really fast to get through it so you can ask your questions. Alfie, I don't know if you were gonna put it up.
Yes, I thought I was sharing it. Sorry. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay.
And let's see, I think I'm gonna have to ask you to change the slides too. So can you,
Yes.
next slide? Thank you. Okay, so student health, we take care of 6,000 undergrads, 7,500 graduate students. We are comprised of 6 physicians, 3 advanced practitioners, 4 nurses, and 4 medical assistants. We're open weekdays, 8:30 to 5, and nights and weekends are covered by acute care. Next slide. All students who come automatically have basic coverage. So that covers student health, acute care, mental health and counseling, GYN, the lab, the infirmary, which is a really nice thing that we have that's special. It's on the 4th floor of our building. It's almost like a hotel where we have students stay overnight if they're feeling unwell, if they need IV fluids, or if we just want to keep a closer eye on them, we bring them upstairs, and nutrition. And then for an extra fee, we can also provide hospital and specialty care. So that's diagnostic imaging, the ED, or hospitalization if needed, specialists, pharmacy, and physical therapy. Next slide. I wanted to talk briefly about our testing program, just because that's what we've really been focusing on. So for the undergrads, we have them all test twice a week. This is regarding COVID. Graduate students, we recommend that they test weekly. all student-facing faculty and staff, meaning all faculty and staff who have a lot of interaction with students, are tested weekly. And then all other faculty staff are tested on a voluntary basis. The picture is actually of our testing booths. This site is actually called Yale on York. It's our newest site. Those booths were designed and built by Yale Engineering. They have a HEPA filter up top so that the air is cleaned and circulated. It's a completely no-touch system. I don't know if you can see on the bottom right of the door, there's a little metal piece where students, faculty, and staff use their foot to open the door, step in. When they are in there, they face back, and the staff member who's standing there, she then goes over there to talk the person through the process if they've never done it before. It's very quick, in and out. We have testing booth sites within the colleges and in the graduate halls, and then we have 3 separate sites for the faculty, staff, and some of the graduate students. We do separate people with symptoms from people who are feeling fine to try to avoid infection. Next slide. From there, when we do have a positive patient, they can be faculty, staff, dependents, or students. They're contacted by what's called the resulting team. It's a team of nurses who've been trained to give guidance about how to take care of yourself when you're sick, to explain what isolation is, teach them indications for calling Yale Health. All undergrads are actually called every day by our care management team. It's a team of nurses. And when they feel that the person is ready for release, they are the team that releases the person from isolation. All what are called index cases, meaning the positive person is interviewed by contact tracing, and all close contacts are then called and advised to quarantine for 14 days. Next slide. We actually developed a program called Salesforce to help us keep track of all of this data. We can find links between cases. We can break it down into what types of students, what types of faculty and staff, how many we have at any given time. We have isolation housing. So you can see on the left, there's isolated on campus. That means they are students who are living in our isolation housing facility. Next slide. And just since August 1st, we've done over 50,000 tests, and we're actually doing really, really well. I made this slide on Friday, so it's not 100% accurate anymore. We have had a few more positives, but as of Friday, it was only 9 undergraduates, 8 graduate students, and 19 employees, which is really good. All of this data, you can actually see it yourself on covid19.yale.edu. If you go to Yale statistics, and there's a lot of other information there as well, so you can take a look around if you're interested. Next slide. And this is just another example of what we're tracking. This is called the 7-day rolling average of positive. So you can see back in March when COVID first hit, it was really high, tapered off kind of through the summer. And then now with people back, it's a little bit up, as you would expect. Next slide. Oh, and this is just an example of how amazing our students are and why I love my job. When students come in, we always end up talking about more about them and what they love to do and what they've already accomplished in their lives before even coming here. So this is a drama student. He is a professional costume designer. These are costumes that he actually designed and made himself. And he's now a student at the drama school. So just everybody here is incredibly impressive. I just also wanted to say another good example of how amazing this place is that in preparation for COVID and students coming back, the entire university came together to prepare. So as would be expected, Yale Health, the Yale Medical School, the School of Epidemiology all teamed together. But in addition to that, university professors were repurposed. One became the head of isolation housing. Hospitality and dining became our testing staff. So that woman that was standing by the booths normally works as dining staff, and now she's one of our testing staff and doing an amazing job. Emergency management, IT, and even students, graduate and undergraduate students who have taken an interest in trying to lead all of this have taken the time to learn about COVID, and they help educate and actually calm a lot of the student body. And that's really important because these are their equals, and these are the people that the students tend to turn to with questions and concerns. So it's just really nice to see the whole university come together to make this happen.
Great. Thank you all for your introductions and explaining a little bit about what it is that you do and support students here on Yale's campus. Every time I participate in one of these, I always think, I wish I was applying to college again so that I could perhaps have the opportunity to take some advantage of some of the resources at these, at Yale specifically. And Christine, I think your introduction or your talk was a good introduction into my first question. Because I know that a lot of students and families who are watching this evening are curious about how your various roles have changed in this age of COVID, and the ways in which you're supporting students now that many of us are virtual or working in more of a hybrid space. And just wondering if a couple of you could talk to that.
Do you want me to go?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
So it is kind of what I was describing, that, for example, our dining staff, they're not as busy because we have fewer students who are actually on campus. Many of them are not eating in the dining halls. We have a takeaway system where people can order food and grab it and leave. So many students are choosing to eat in their courtyards or in their rooms. And so it was apparent that this was a very large workforce that could be used for a different purpose. And they were all very willing. They all had to be trained in how to not get themselves or others infected, because this is a really highly contagious disease. And they all managed to learn this. They come to work every day doing something completely different from what they signed up to do, and again are doing a really amazing job. I actually took a tour of one of the sites, and just impressive to see. And they're so nice too to all the students, staff, and faculty. So it's really great. And then I was going to say, so Don Filer, he's usually, I think he's actually very high up in the university. He takes care of a lot of Yale's international work. And he was put in charge of, initially it was the emergency workers in New Haven who needed housing. So he was in charge of that. And then he transitioned into housing all of the students who were COVID positive, and very happy to do it. It is running well. So everybody was somewhat repurposed and is doing amazing work.
I think one thing I'd add, just on a lighter note, is that we, people use the word pivot a lot now about how we've changed how we work. And when students weren't coming to our virtual events that would normally in person involve food, we decided to change it up. So we started a Cooking with the Chaplains video series. And so each of us are taking a turn cooking dishes that are easy to make and fun, and hopefully nutritious. And so that's one of the things we've been doing, and it takes people a little bit out of their normal interpretation of what a religious leader might do or look like or care about. And that's been kind of fun to think outside the box with our programming.
Wonderful. Thank you for that insight. And then I have one last question that I'd like to ask of the panelists before I launch into our audience Q&A. And I'm curious if each of you or a few of you could just share what's one Yale resource that you wish more of our incoming students would take advantage of or would use.
I would say Karen's academic strategies workshops, which I feel like I advertise every single week. And, you know, especially when students, you know, come and talk to me and say, oh, I have so much reading to do. I'm like, there's a workshop called Managing a Heavy Reading Load. And, oh, you have a midterm? There's a time management workshop. So I feel like I'm kind of, you know, I feel like I've watched these workshops kind of evolve over the past few years, and that Karen talked a lot about resources, the concept of tutoring being free and normalized, where everybody's taking advantage of it, is, I think, unusual for incoming Yale students. So I would say that that's a big plug that I'm working on right now.
I'm gonna chime in here as well and say I really, really, really want our students to take advantage of the many, I mean, there's so many resources to support our students' mental health and overall wellness. There's the Good Life Center, which has events, you know, around the clock, it seems, and you can go to the website for that. I also put some information in the Q&A chat as well, so you can check out, there's Yale Well, which is kind of a hub, a virtual hub for all of the different wellness initiatives that are happening across campus and in the area. I know at the house, again, we call the Afro-American Cultural Center the house. We hosted a number of different wellness initiatives throughout the summer, throughout the spring and summer. As soon as COVID hit, one of the first things that we thought of is people's wellness, people's mental health, and wanting to support that. And so we held a number of virtual events to support our students through that. We also made sure that we were getting our students to mental health and counseling if they felt that they needed that, and connected them directly with counselors on and off campus and in their hometowns around the country and world. So those are a couple of things. Definitely Purvu. I also put that in the Q&A too. So I put a ton of different links in there from the pre-college and pre-orientation programs, which everybody should check those out, whether it's Focus or Cultural Connections or FSY, the First Year Scholars at Yale program. Purvu I put in there. There's just so many. It can be a little bit overwhelming, the number of resources that are here, but you know, check them all out and just reach out and ask questions about them. We'll help you out.
I think a resource that I'm often encouraging students to take advantage of is the faculty. Like it's an incredible faculty, and for many students, especially first year and sophomore year students, they can be a little intimidated because, you know, it's a Pulitzer Prize winner, or it's somebody who, you know, discovered this important idea in chemistry or biology. But at the end of the day, the faculty are teaching because they really care about students and that they want to pass their knowledge on to students. They have a wealth of knowledge. And so, you know, through the academic strategies program, we're often encouraging students to say, go talk to your faculty members, go to office hours, talk to them about what you're interested in and what you're passionate about. Like Sergi, I also get to teach occasionally, and it's the best part of my teaching job is sitting down and listening to students and seeing what their ideas are and encouraging them and connecting them to resources and ideas that perhaps they hadn't considered before. So encouraging your own students and yourself as a student to reach out to faculty, it's just they're such an incredible resource, and really excited and happy to talk to students, because talking to students is what energizes the work that they do as thinkers and writers and researchers.
Great. Thank you all for sharing all those great tidbits. It's always amazing to think about how wide of a scope of resources that we have here at Yale. And I feel like you all have only just scratched the surface in some ways of what's available here. So hopefully some of our audience members will look into that more deeply. So the questions are starting to roll in, which is great from our audience members. So I'd like to start answering some of their questions. And the first question that comes is from Amanda. She says, I know tutoring was mentioned prior, but I was wondering if the professors have office hours or if tutoring is only available certain days of the week.
I guess I can take that question. Yes, as I just said, all professors are actually required to have office hours. And again, they love talking to students. Office hours can look different across different parts of the university. In my own courses in the humanities, I tend to meet with students one-on-one, sit and talk over their papers, and you know, have good conversations about what we're reading and what we're writing about. In the sciences and in STEM, sometimes office hours are, you know, opportunities where professors will answer the questions about problem sets or about what they're working on that day. But you can also always contact a professor for a specific one-on-one conversation. In terms of tutoring, there's just so much tutoring available. And pretty much any day during the week, and even on Sunday nights, you can find either a writing tutor or a residential college tutor. We actually have residential college writing tutors. We have residential college tutors in STEM. We have course-based peer tutors and undergraduate learning assistants. Those are attached to courses, and there's usually a whole bunch of them. And you can find a course-based peer tutor. They have sessions during the week, multiple sessions during the week, and you can usually find a session with either the ULAs or the course-based peer tutors that you can go to. When I say that there's lots of tutoring, we literally book thousands of appointments. For example, the Yale College Writing Center has both adult professional writing tutors with offices in the residential colleges. Of course, with COVID, we're doing everything virtually, but that's actually even expanded our reach a little bit, because then you know, students feel more comfortable logging on and working with a tutor. And we also have a peer tutoring program. And between those two programs, we see over 10,000 appointments each academic year. For a academic student body of roughly 6,000 or so, maybe a little less. So you can see students really do heavily use these services on campus, and they're very widely available. And as Dean Chando pointed out, they're all free.
Gotta love free. It's always good. Thank you for that answer. Our next question comes from Elder. They ask, are there religious services that take place on campus, or do students go off campus to find a church?
There's both. We have a Muslim prayer room where the Muslim community goes for their 5-time daily prayer. We have a Hindu prayer space, a Buddhist shrine. We have, like I said, 2 chapels that offer various Christian services, both on Sunday and also in the middle of the week. There's a very large Catholic community, a chapel right adjacent to campus, and a large Jewish community center called the Slifka Center, which is also right on campus, next door to my house. I live on campus. So again, I put in the chat our website, which is really easy and accessible. And so I encourage you to look at that. You'll be able to find the different religious organizations that come through the chaplaincy. And someone also had a question about how to find the Cooking with the Chaplains. You can sign up for our newsletter, again, on our website, and we send that out weekly.
Thank you. So I'm looking at some of the questions here that are coming through, and we're getting a lot of questions related to mental health on campus and what sort of resources available are to undergraduate students when it comes to mental health services, and wondering if a couple of you could talk about how we support our students in their mental health.
I can take that. I mentioned this both in the chat and in my earlier response. You can look in the chat in the Q&A, SE Pereira, I want to say. So there are a number of ways that we support our students' mental health and overall wellness. Resources are available through Yale Health, just the cultural, the hub that I mentioned earlier, the website that you can go to find out about Yale Well in terms of the mental health, the financial health, the cultural health, just the whole wheel of wellness. So you can go to that. We also have Walden Peer Counseling that's available to students. The link is in there as well. You can also find through the different cultural centers and the affinity groups that Chaplain Kugler had mentioned earlier, a ton of different workshops and events that supports our students' mental health and just, again, overall wellness from very culturally empowering and resonant ways and spiritually uplifting ways. So there are a lot of different ways to access those, whether it's, just going into to mental health and counseling once we get through COVID. Right now, you have to call up or you can email to get an appointment. But, you can also work with our peer liaisons, our Weldon peer counselors. There's, again, just a lot of different ways to access mental health wellness resources.
I was just going to add that I think one of the things that Dr. Chen put in her PowerPoint was that the basic health coverage that all students have covers mental health and counseling. And that, I think, is something that students don't always realize, that regardless of if they come and they have their parents' insurance for the kind of extra coverage, that everybody has mental health and counseling coverage. And so there are definitely students who might come to Yale and say, okay, this is my opportunity to take advantage of mental health counseling that I may not have had access to back home. And so a lot of students will come here really seeking that, but think that there's a barrier of like insurance or something like that. I just wanted to make it really clear that that's part of the coverage that every student has. And that is something that, that's a question we get a lot.
Great, thank you. And kind of continuing along this line of health and who's helping to care for our students, Olivia asks, in general, who takes care of my child when she simply gets a bad cold or a stomach bug? And who goes to the drugstore to get meds or get her food?
So I can take that. All students are welcome to come to us with any kind of issue, no matter how small or how big. Sarjeet's correct. We used to be more of a walk-in system, but because of COVID, you do have to call in first. You have to make an appointment to be seen. A lot of our visits now are video visits or telephone visits, which actually the students love because they can be running around doing something else and talking to us at the same time. So it's nice, they can squeeze us in between classes, whereas before they would have to run over here to be seen. But we have a pharmacy actually in our building, so medications can be prescribed there. If people are what's called waived, meaning they have only the basic coverage, we then prescribe at a local pharmacy. There are many pharmacies within walking distance to Yale, so a lot of our students don't find that to be much of a burden. In terms of food, Sarjeet, you want to take that?
Sure. So I would say one thing is that if a student is in the infirmary, I'm usually the person notified if it's a Trumbull student. And we really try to foster community in each of the colleges, and students make really incredible friends here. So I can say that if it's a first-year student, it's often a FROCO who is going to go grab a meal at the dining hall for a student. When it comes to medicine, like Dr. Chen said, there's a pharmacy right in Yale Health, and there's a Walgreens down the street, and CVS over there. So things are really close by. But I think that oftentimes when it comes to the little things that are the true comforts, it's a lot of student peer-based care. And these the first years who are here have only been here for a few weeks, and you would think they've known each other for like 10 years. They really care about each other. And, we had some people who had, some stomach bugs very early on, unfortunately, and they had only been here for a few days, and one student had multiple people like looking out for her, and it was really lovely to see. So that, I would say, some of the simple comforts come from just caring for each other. This is their family away from home.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing. And Surjit, this question is directed to you. Could you talk a little bit more about the types of relationships that you have with the students and the different types of advising at Yale to help kids make decisions?
Yeah, I think, we have a really incredible panel here, and I think that really features a lot of the resources that we have. Like I said, I think I often serve as one of my roles is just to help people find those resources. And so when we were just talking about mental health, for example, like Dean Nelson did really nicely, is kind of explain that there's lots of different resources, from peer resources to actual, mental health professionals, to, the chaplain's office and the house and the other cultural centers and myself and the head of college, confidants who they can have to talk to about pretty much anything. And then I would say that I often encourage students, so, I have first years who are taking large lecture courses only. And I say, every year you should try to get to know at least one professor. And it's not impossible to get to know one when you're taking large lecture classes, but it is more challenging. It might be a little more intimidating to go to office hours, but I always say, come and talk to me and I'll help like coach you on how to do that. And I think one of the beauties of the COVID times is that the Zoom office hours seem to be, I've heard from multiple faculty members saying that they've never had so many students show up to office hours. So that, I think, is one of the silver linings that will hopefully stay beyond this pandemic, to have some level of kind of accessible virtual office hours. But I would say there's such a range, and we call it the constellation of advising, because every student will have an advisor who's affiliated with their residential college, for their first year, and they will have a first year counselor. And if they choose, they'll also have a peer liaison. But then as they navigate their way through Yale, they're going to have faculty members who may not be a formal advisor, but might just be someone who they love to talk to, and who they just trust to kind of give them frank and open and honest advice. And then, they always have their residential college dean to fall back on, and some students take advantage of that a lot, and some don't, and some really just see it. My office is more of a transactional office if they want to drop a class, or if they want to do something with regards to the regulations or postpone a requirement. And then there's some students who talk to me like every week. So it really varies. But I think that you're going to have students who might start doing research in their first or second year, and they forge this like years long relationship with the faculty member. It's such a constellation of advising that happens. But I think that there's pretty much someone who a student can talk to in every realm you can imagine here, who I think, like Karen said, is really approachable. People are really nice here. I think there's a huge misconception about that, and students are shocked sometimes when they have that Pulitzer winning or Nobel Prize winning or professor who's like, oh my God, they like talk to me. It's like, of course, that's what they love to do. That's why they're here at Yale. They're not only amazing researchers and academics, but they want to teach undergraduates.
Thank you for saying that. I definitely agree. The people here at Yale, I think, are what make it such a special place to be, especially as an undergraduate student. So my next question comes from Adriana. She asks, how does Yale make undergraduates feel included and help them through their first years?
I think we could probably all speak to that in different ways. One website that I'll point out, another kind of virtual hub for all of this information, will be belonging.yale.edu, where you can find out a lot about what is happening in Yale's different affinity spaces, whether it's the cultural centers or the various affinity spaces that were mentioned earlier today. And yes, Chaplain Kugler just put that in the chat as well. Thank you. And but one thing that I'll really highlight is the peer liaison program. I know I mentioned it earlier on, but this works with 4 cultural centers and with 3 of our affinity spaces, the Office for International Students and Scholars, Chaplain's Office, and our Office for LGBTQ Resources. And our students, upper level students, work directly one-on-one and also in group settings with our first years to make sure that our students are transitioning into their first years here. And that they're finding their way. And so whether that is, finding the right classes for them, whether that's introducing them to professors or different organizations that kind of meet their interests, or whether that is, helping them find out where to get their hair cut or their hair done, which is, really important for us. We want to make sure that that our students have the resources that they want, that they need, and that they especially feel like they are at home, and so there was also, I just want to touch on this really quickly. There was also another question about how do first years get involved with cultural centers. And this is another way of supporting our students' inclusion and their sense of belonging at Yale. So upon application, students will identify themselves, their racial backgrounds, and based on how they identify, they will receive information from the different cultural centers about different events happening, different workshops, different resources, and so that's one way. But really, these are university resources open to every single person who is visiting campus, let alone our students. And so you can just literally walk in and say, hey, what's happening here? And you can come into the house or any of the cultural centers, and you'll find people studying, or perhaps taking a nap from studying, or having a cup of coffee, or they may be in rehearsals for their plays, or for choir, or leading an organizational meeting. So there's just a lot of different ways to get involved with all of the various resources. Somebody also asked about student organizations and extracurriculars. I believe there's over 500 student organizations, undergraduate student organizations right now. So there's just tons to explore. And if you don't find what meets your needs, you can also create your own organization. So, it's important to remember that you can find your own place, you can make your own place here.
I'd also add that, sorry, you can go, Chaplain Kugler.
I just wanted to add, and this sort of also is that, what's that resource you wish you knew or could take advantage of it? I want to just talk about Dwight Hall as an incredible resource on campus. Dwight Hall is the Center for Public Service and Social Justice, and there's a lot of cross-pollination with our religious kids and the work of the Hall. But there's direct service opportunities, there's organizing opportunities. It's all about New Haven, whether it's education, healthcare, immigration. It's just a vibrant, wonderful resource. And the Hall is physically located on campus, in the middle of campus, but it's all about the spokes out into the city of New Haven. And the students I've known over the years who've been involved in the Hall, whether it's homelessness, issues and hunger, or education, have just been so happy to have that in their lives. Yaleys are doers, and they're also solution oriented. And so as much as we treasure New Haven, and we also know that there's lots of needs that can be met with the help of Yaleys in particular. And so that's just one more resource I wanted to name.
And I just wanted to go back to the kind of the first year experience, because that's very much happening right now. All of our first years have a first year counselor, a FROCO, and I think, so the residential college deans oversee the FROCOs. So we hire them, and we work with the head of college to hire them, and they are really stellar seniors who who we are trusting to kind of, I think of them as kind of junior deans who are working very closely with the first year class. And so just thinking about kind of the number of, first years to FROCOs, FROCOs are overseeing, maybe 12 to 15 students, and and living among the students. So even though this year they're not having kind of lots of in-person interactions unless they're outside, they are living in the college and kind of keeping an eye on them, meeting with them regularly. And I would say peers, it has come up again, throughout this conversation, that peers are often the ones that students go to first. And so FROCOs are peers, just, a few years ahead. And they answer such a range of questions, everything from, mental health and counseling to academics to research to, they are really, I think, helping students to transition to Yale.
Great, thank you for that. So I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions before our final question. But I think this one is kind of appropriate as families are thinking about perhaps sending their children away from home, and certainly some of them are thinking of sending them far away from home, so perhaps middle of the United States or from a different country. And so we have a question that says, what do you have to say for parents that are overprotective about their children heading off to a different state for college?
I live here. I think that's one of the things I say. I live here. The head of college lives here. Chaplain Kugler lives here. I think my hope is that that comforts parents.
I think I'd also say that your child may call you and just dump all their anxieties and then hang up and go upon their merry way, and you're just trashed by it. And that's just kind of what happens. And I, as the mother of 2 adults and grandmother of 6, I know how this is, and they do better than you think. But it's a little, it's a little bit clunky in the beginning for some.
I have to agree from a medical perspective. We do have a lot of overprotective parents who call in, and some actually want to be pretty much in the room with their child while we're talking to them. And I have to say, almost always the student is on top of things, knows what to say, what to do. I think it's more when the parent is involved, it's just to make the parent feel better. The student is all good. So you can trust your children. You can trust that you raise them well, and they're young adults and ready to start some independence.
Wonderful. Trust your children, audience. Trust your children. You have raised them well, and they will do good things when you send them off into the world. Well, I would like to thank all of our audience members for all the great questions. I'm so sorry we didn't get to all of them, but I think a good follow-up question to end our time together. I'm just wondering if each of you could give briefly some advice that you would have for our families about supporting their children as they head off to college.
I can go. I remember a sophomore saying to me one time, I have so much I want to tell my family if only they'd ask me the right questions. And so I would just encourage you to think about the non-obvious questions, the things that you might want to know, but maybe that's not what they want you to know. They're encountering so many new things and learning so much more about themselves. And so think about asking some of the questions that you wouldn't ordinarily ask them.
I would say one of the things that our students struggle with, especially when they first get here, is asking for help. As much as you can, encourage them, make it a normal thing to do, please. Asking for help is something we strongly encourage here. And when I say asking for help, it's anything that just, I think, normalizing that and encouraging them to come and talk to any of us who are right here on this panel. We love what we do, and we really care about our students. And I think that it's incredibly helpful when they come to us, rather than us finding out that they need us for, from a professor who's like, oh, this student hasn't shown up for 5 weeks. I think the idea is that it's much better for them to know that it's not a big lift to come and talk to us, and we're not going to think badly of them. We really care and want to help.
I actually think about this quite a bit, although my son has another 4 years to before he's off to college. But thinking about that, thinking about myself as a parent, I want to say to our families, love them unconditionally without judgment as they go through this really critical period of learning and growth. Academics are important. Academics are honestly, part of the reason, a major reason, obviously, why they are at Yale, why they are going to college, and we want them to graduate. But this is also a period of intense growth for them, and help them also know that you may not have all of the answers about college, and empower them to take advantage of the many different campus resources and local resources as well, and let them find their ways, and trust in the guidance that you've given them as their parents, as their families, and in the support networks also that exist here in the area.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on what almost everyone has said, trust your student and believe in them, and know that they are going to be that part of the growth that they're going to have over the next 4 years is that they're as much as from their successes, and that as Dean Nelson said, just support them and love them unconditionally, and let them they'll likely change their mind about their majors about 4 or 5 or 6 times, right? And it's not something to worry about. It's normal. They're exploring who they are. So I think honoring their own journey of self-discovery and finding out what is going to be the best path for them is really, really crucial. And sometimes that's very different than what the path you imagine for them. But if they feel your support, they're going to be happy and satisfied and successful adults. And I think that's what all of us want to see happen.
I 100% agree with Dean Nelson's love your children unconditionally. They will change over these next several years, probably a lot. And no matter what happens, they are yours and good people. Maybe not what you expected of them, but still, wonderful people who will be successful and happy with your support.
Thank you all for those great responses. I feel I have such warmth in my heart after hearing all of your advice to our families. As we close tonight's session, I just would like to thank all of our panelists for all of your great advice and sharing about the various resources that we have here to support our students on campus, and really just highlighting what a great, I think, community that we have here at Yale. It was really great to hear all of the anecdotes that you shared with us this evening. I'd also like to thank our audience members. Thank you for joining us and tuning in and asking so many great questions. It looks like we were either able to answer many of them live, and some of them I know were answered in the background by my colleagues. But I hope you all continue to tune into the sessions that we have for the Multicultural Open House over the next few days and week, and continue to learn more about Yale, and certainly reach out to the admissions office if you have additional questions that we can answer for you. But thank you so much for giving us your time this evening, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you all in the future. Have a great night. Bye-bye.